Call the July 1st, 2025 special meeting and possible executive session to order. This evening or this afternoon, we have Scottsdale Police Sergeant Ingram and Police Officer Wilburn, as well as firefighter Megan Barella. If anyone requires their assistance, please let a member of the staff know. City Clerk Ben Lane, please conduct the roll call for us.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Lisa Borowski.
Present.
Vice Mayor Jan Duboskus.
Here.
Councilmembers Barry Graham.
Here.
Adam Quasman. Kathy Littlefield.
Here.
Marianne McCallan.
Present.
And Solange Whitehead.
Here.
City Manager Greg Caton.
Here.
Acting City Attorney Louis Santiago.
Here.
Acting City Treasurer Scott Sellen.
Here.
And the clerk is present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. At this time, we are considering moving into executive session to discuss the following items. I note that item A has been removed at the request of staff. Then we have consideration of employment, assignment, appointment, compensation, and benefits of a permanent city auditor from the following candidates: Tom Alger, Ivo Georgiev, and Russ Needler. And also consideration and instruction regarding the public body's position on contracts that are the subject of employment negotiations, and consultation with the city's attorneys for legal advice on employment and compensation of a city auditor. And finally, discussion and consideration of employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, demotion, dismissal, compensation and benefits, and other contract terms of the city attorney and interim city attorney. I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
We're quicker than aye. All right, we are now recessed into executive session. Thank you. Now, we've adjourned our executive session, and I am reconvening our special meeting of the council this evening. For the record, the council and charter officers are all in attendance with the exception of Councilman Adam Quasman. Next on the special meeting agenda, we have item number 2, which relates to the resignation agreement and general release for City Attorney Sherry Scott and the interim city attorney appointment. This item involves the council's consideration of Resolution 13456, which would authorize the mayor, me, to execute resignation agreement and general release number 2025-114-COS with outgoing City Attorney Sherry Scott, and number 2, authorize the appointment of now City Attorney Luis Santanea as interim City Attorney, retroactive to June 17th, 2025, at an annual salary of $319,000 with the same benefits he currently receives until such time as a permanent city attorney is appointed and begins employment. There is no staff presentation on these items. However, we do have one public comment, and that is Steve Sutton. Steve, if you'd like to come forward.
Steve Sutton, address on record. Honorable Lisa Borowski, Mayor of Scottsdale, and council members. I met City of Scottsdale Attorney Sherry Scott in the fall of 2024. She has always impressed me with her friendly and polite professionalism. While Sherry always made it very clear she was the City of Scottsdale's attorney, to the limit allowed by her professional ethics, she was very helpful in answering my questions. Sherry once went the extra mile to telephone and reassure a very worried man that a failure to place an item on a city council meeting agenda was being corrected. Sherry resigning is another loss of Scottsdale's invaluable institutional knowledge. That type of loss for Scottsdale has been rather extraordinary in recent occurrence. I really like Sherry Scott, and I'm sad to see her end her career with Scottsdale. I hope in the future I will again get the opportunity to enjoy talking to Sherry, and I hope this council will vote to do the very best they can for her upon her resignation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are no other public comments indicated, so on that note, I close public comment, and do I have any questions? Vice Mayor DeBuscus.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 13456.
Second.
All those in favor, I don't see any requests to speak, please indicate your vote. That concludes our business for the special meeting, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, indicate your vote. I think we're good. We will take a short break, and then we'll be back to start our regular scheduled meeting. Thank you. I'd like to call the July 1st, 2025 City Council regular meeting to order. City Clerk Ben Lane, will you please conduct our roll call?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Lisa Borowski,
Present.
Vice Mayor Jan Dubaskis,
Here.
Council Members Barry Graham, Adam Quasman,
Present.
thank you, Kathy Littlefield,
Here.
Mary Ann McCallan,
Present.
and Solange Whitehead.
Here.
City Manager Greg Caton,
Here.
Interim City Attorney Louis Santea,
Present.
Acting City Treasurer Scott Seelan,
Present.
Acting City Auditor Lake Clough,
Here.
and the clerk is present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And this evening, we have Scottsdale Police Sergeant Bernice Ingram and Police Officer Ray Wilburn, as well as firefighter Megan Barella. If anyone requires their assistance, please let a member of the staff know. For the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to ask Councilwoman Littlefield to lead us in the same. Thank you. For tonight's invocation, I'll turn it over to Vice Mayor Jan Dubaskis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce us to Mr. Gates. Mr. Gates is a Scottsdale resident, and he's my girl's first grade teacher. Mr. Gates is also a pastor, and he can frequently be seen running around Copper Ridge dressed as the Grinch, as Yoda. He has fun with the kids, and it's my honor to ask him to provide us with the invocation tonight. Mr. Gates?
I'm looking to see if you're going to turn on that time limit clock for me. Thank you, Jan. Would you pray with me? Almighty God, this Friday on the 4th of July, we will celebrate the birth of our nation and the American experiment of government. We pray for our leaders in local governments like this one across our country, and in our state governments and in our national government. We also pray for our servicemen and women across our world, the first responders and the firefighters and law enforcement personnel who put themselves often in harm's way to protect us. As Abraham Lincoln so eloquently stated, this American experiment was government of the people and by the people and for the people. Here tonight at this City Council meeting, we enact this principle in one of its most basic and honorable forms. As elected leaders by the people gather to share ideas and discuss the future of the place where we live and work and enjoy life together. Almighty God, we gather tonight seeking your guidance and wisdom as the City Council meeting begins. I am grateful for all who gather here tonight to serve our community and ask for your blessings upon our city leaders, our great city, and its residents. We ask for your guidance and wisdom as the council works together and engages in the important items before this body. May their discussions be filled with understanding and respect, clarity of thought, unity of purpose, and a spirit of common purpose for the benefit of all. May they work together with wisdom and compassion and be always mindful of the needs of the people of our community. Guide them to engage in meaningful discussion as they make decisions that affect all the residents of our city and the future of this great city. I pray that all here tonight would be inspired to show a spirit of kindness, respect, and collaboration. remind all here tonight that they have been entrusted with a solemn purpose. They have been chosen as servant leaders of this community and this city. May the discussions and deliberations and the words shared reflect the high calling given to them as they demonstrate the highest ideals of what it means to be a servant leader, chosen by the people, to be wise as leaders and as a body, striving to build an even brighter future for our city. It's in your name that I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Gates.
Thank you very much. This evening for the mayor's report, I would like to recognize a member of our community. It came to our attention a couple of weeks ago now, that there was a member of our audience that frequently comes to our council meetings who was on his own a good Samaritan for our community when he came across an older gentleman, 80-so-plus years old, who had exited his car and fallen onto the pavement. And Jeff Barnes exercised significant kindness and went to his to attend to him and called for medical help so that he got the help he needed. So for your service, Jeff, I'd like to recognize you as with this certificate of appreciation for helping out a fellow member of your community. So would you like to come get the certificate? All right, as always, we may, during tonight's meeting, find the need to make a motion to recess into executive session in order to obtain legal advice on any applicable item on the agenda. If authorized by the council, the executive session will be held immediately and will not be open to the public. The public meeting would resume following the executive session. I'd like to open up the first public comment. A public comment is reserved for Scottsdale citizens, business owners, and/or property owners to comment on non-agendized items that are within the council's jurisdiction. No official council action can be taken on these items, and speakers are limited to 3 minutes each to address the council. If you wish to speak on a non-agendized or agendized topic, please see the city clerk. This evening, we have some speakers on non-agendized items, starting with Madeline Dolgen, followed by Dan Isaac, Steve Sutton, and Lyle Gango. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Madeline Dolgen. My address is 15509 North Scottsdale Road. I've been a Scottsdale resident much of my life and currently work at ASU as a Sustainable Procurement Coordinator. I'm here today speaking as a concerned citizen to express my disappointment in the repeal of the Scottsdale Sustainability Plan. My views are my own and not reflective of ASU as a whole. I grew up enjoying our desert landscape, playing at Cactus Park, hiking trails, and biking the Greenbelt. After attending college out of state, I returned to Arizona, met my husband, also a Scottsdale native, and we recently moved back to Scottsdale to raise our 18-month-old son. We want him to enjoy the same parks and experiences we loved, but that's getting harder. Temperatures are rising, air quality is declining. His current favorite word this summer is hot. I want my son to grow up in a healthy, sustainable, and comfortable environment. Studies show time in nature supports child development, physical mobility, imagination, and emotional resilience. The Community Sustainability Plan builds on goals outlined in the general plan, which speaks mostly to broad aspirations like striving for zero waste and protecting natural areas, but lacks measurable targets. And that's not to say we haven't made great improvements, but I think that there is more to do. The Sustainability Plan provided metrics, timelines, and a review cycle. It turns ideas into action. Without tracking, goals like strive for zero waste become just nice ideas. In the section of the sustainability plan on Beyond Waste, it set a 90% landfill reduction target. That's concrete. Vice Mayor Graham, who voted to repeal the plan, you said our lane doesn't include imposing restrictions. Our residents are smart and don't need us to tell them the right thing to do. But leadership isn't just about trusting good intentions, as much as I'd like to do that. It's about setting up guardrails that protect the greater good. At ASU, I've seen well-intended programs fail without this type of accountability. For example, setting up compost bins sounds great, but without education and tracking those actual weights, those bins often get contaminated and they end up landfilled. People usually want to do the right thing, but they do need guidance and sometimes guardrails. What keeps me up at night isn't just my toddler. It's the fear that he'll grow up indoors or face health risks from pollution. Climate change isn't just a future threat. It's a public health issue we already face. I hear more and more friends in their 20s and 30s struggling with infertility, which research shows may be linked to environmental toxins that are endocrine disruptors. There are real consequences if we don't keep acting and moving forward. While I didn't help draft the plan, I do know that SEEK and other leaders poured their hearts into the plan. It included high-priority issues and those that citizens are most concerned about. It was well-researched and thorough, helping to guide meaningful actions. If this plan wasn't right for Scottsdale, then what is? I'd like to know what the council envisions as a better path forward and how you plan to measure progress, and hope that we can engage in dialogue on that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Graham.
Madeline, thank you for coming to present. You just mentioned my name, so I just wanted to thank you for coming and speaking to us in the council.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Daniel Isaac.
I'll need the overhead. I'll need the overhead, please. Mayor, and thank you for the time to speak. Dan Isaac, address on record. The last meeting I mentioned how Barry Graham was trying to stifle free speech on Nextdoor by reporting comments that actually didn't violate any Nextdoor guidelines, and they haven't been removed. I would have thought that this would have been somewhat embarrassing for Barry, but no, he actually continues to do it and has doubled down. Not only is he reporting more and more comments from a variety of people, but he's enlisted some of his supporters to report them as well. I will point to these bottom two comments with the underlined words. Dangerous comment versus dangerous activity. Maybe defamation, potentially defamatory. And then my favorite, disrupts community harmony. Exact verbatim between him and one of his followers. If somebody's going to try to collude to do this, I think he would be a bit more discreet. At the last meeting, Jason Alexander brought up that Barry has repeatedly denied any relationship with Rod Pritchett. And in reality, we know that he was at Barry's wedding and Barry's campaign paid him. That is not no relation, that's actually a close relation. It's also been mentioned in the press and a variety of other sources how Rod Pritchett is one of the people behind the Scottsdale Edge and also Scottsdale Voter. Rod himself accidentally revealed himself during Barry's ethics hearing, which he lost, by the way, as Scottsdale Voter. If you're not familiar with Scottsdale Voter, you should go to his Facebook page, which is filled with daily, hostile, vitriolic posts. He repeatedly attacks people that don't support Barry Sanders. He distorts their photos and calls them names that a third grader would use. This post actually shows me standing in front of a pride flag. We call that gay baiting. Don't know who the artist is, but they're actually quite talented. It shows my husband wearing a sombrero, because apparently to the artist and to Barry and many of his supporters, they don't know the difference between one Latin country and another. My husband actually happens to be Chilean. They don't wear sombreros. And then the comment below is a reference to Clutching the Pearls, another gay baiting comment. But the piece de resistance is Rod Pritchett, AKA Scottsdale Voter, calling me a pedophile. So Barry, you're concerned with disrupting community harmony. You report comments that don't violate any decency, but you say nothing about your hired gun saying such despicable things. Why is that, Barry? Even if you don't have a relationship with him, shouldn't you be commenting on it? Adam and Kathy, do you want to be associated with this? I'm not asking Jan because she has the same techniques. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Isaac. There's just so much baseless, unproven speculation that,
Tell me what's baseless and unproven.
Mr. Isaac, I didn't interrupt you, okay?
No, but you attack me regularly.
Mr. Isaac, once again, I didn't interrupt you. Baseless, unproven speculation. Thank you for coming to speak to us.
You use the same comment after any person points out your bad behavior.
So we're seeing this more and more often. I'm going to cut off back and forth moving forward with these types of encounters. And I think there's, while everyone has the ability and the right to get up and make comments, the back and forth is not for this body. Thank you so much. Steve Sutton.
Mayor Borowski, before I begin, I'd just like to raise two technical issues. One is I've been told I either speak too softly or I speak too loudly. I'm going to be speaking very loud and fast tonight because I have too much to say to speak softly and slowly. The other technical issue is it's very important to me that the council is paying attention to what I'm saying. And the only way I can really know that they're doing that is if they are looking at me and not down at their phones. So I would ask the council members, for the short time I'm up here, give me their full attention. Steve Sutton, address on record. Good evening, Honorable Lisa Borowski, Mayor of Scottsdale, and council members. I believe that Council Member Barry Graham tried to secretly use the Scottsdale Police Department as his own private police force. Barry Graham is also attempting on social media to intimidate people who disagree with him. I recently replied to Barry Graham's social media post about Scottsdale Fashion Square. The first reply begins, Scottsdale Fashion Square 10 years ago was in the top 5 for revenue per square foot. Scottsdale Fashion Square was also a much better mall 10 years ago. Unfortunately, new ownership management decided to make changes and additions that degraded and destroyed some of the unique historic and cultural features and aesthetics of the mall that had been there for decades. I then wrote an incomplete list of the bad changes and this concluding statement. The memories of thousands of Scottsdalians and visitors from around the world have been destroyed. The historic and cultural aesthetics of the mall have been ruined by greed and indifference to the sentiments of Scottsdalians. That last sentence also applies to plans some individuals have for building of a parking garage in front of historic Old Town's old Adobe Mission. What a sad state of affairs this city has devolved to. Perhaps Scottsdalians, excuse me, Councilman Graham, would you please give me your attention? Thank you. Perhaps Scottsdalians will find a solution in new private and public management and leadership to stop the degradation and replace that which has been destroyed. My second reply was, it's not that it isn't a fun place to go today, it's just it was much better before. I've spoken to quite a few businesses just before they left the mall due to ridiculous increases in leases. Greed drove out some of the best merchants and altered the entire ambiance of the mall in a bad way. Some things need to be preserved as they are, or people get angry at having the places in their happy memories destroyed and degraded. Angry people often create the unpleasant consequences for the people who made them angry. Now, shortly after writing that last sentence, I edited it to end with the unpleasant consequence of voting leaders out of office and ending support for management. Councilman Barry Graham responded by reporting only the first version of that second reply to the Scottsdale Police, saying, in light of recent events that occurred in Minnesota, these comments were especially frightening. He also said he had complaints that I was aggressively collecting petition signatures and I frequently contacted the council. At the last council meeting, Barry Graham said to me, Most of what you said is unproven speculation that I wouldn't agree with. I wanted to keep that incident private. I replied by holding up a document saying, "This is your police report. It is not speculation." Councilman Graham replied, "I wanted to keep that incident private. You made a comment in my social media about unpleasant consequences that would happen to me. I informed a member of the police, and it was supposed to remain private. I never made a specific threat that unpleasant consequences would happen to Councilman Barry Graham. It is not believable that Councilman Barry Graham did not know that reporting a threat to the police cannot be kept private. Councilman Barry Graham attempted to manipulate the Scottsdale police into engaging in the illegal act of behaving as his private secret police and did this to serve his political agenda. Councilman Barry Graham, you have several apologies to make, starting with an apology to the entire Scottsdale Police Department. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Councilman Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. I appreciate you coming to speak to us tonight. When a member of the public, from my perspective, threatens unpleasant consequences against me, I have young children at home. That was threatening speech. You made a comment that, well, that was just one version of the comment. That was what it was written. That's how I felt. You made a comment that I was trying to keep it private. What I meant by that, I know that police reports are not private. What I meant by that is I'm not broadcasting it. Let's keep it between us. You were the one that promoted it. Thank you, sir.
I'll address that tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Lila Yango.
Hello, I'm Lila Yango. My home address is 11281 Eastdale Timber Drive. Yeah. Okay. Today I'm here to urge Scottsdale to take more action to protect nature and people. Why? Because the local governments need to step up in the face of the national and state governments not taking enough action and even pulling back on action. For example, the federal budget bill that just passed the Senate will raise energy costs for houses by eliminating clean energy tax credits. And at the state level, nothing has been done to address the Colorado River water crisis. So even if Scottsdale is taking measures at the moment, Scottsdale needs to take more action. We need to step up. And this is because right now, if you go outside, it's a bit hot, and that's because climate change is making it even hotter right now. So what I'm urging Scottsdale to do, is to take even more action. I heard that you are planning on passing a shade and tree plan, and that's good news, but this could have already been done if the sustainability plan had not been repealed. So I'm also asking that you re-implement a sustainability plan with clear targets that are measurable and that you follow up on these goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes the public comment on non-agendized items. Turning now, we will approve the meeting minutes. If there's no objection or corrections, I will entertain a motion to approve the following meeting minutes: the launch retreat meeting minutes of May 13th, 2025, special meeting minutes of May 20th, 2025, executive session minutes of May 20th, 2025, and regular meeting minutes of May 20th, 2025.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please indicate your vote.
Aye.
Moving on to the consent agenda, we have consent agenda items 1 through 9. Unless any members of the council have any questions or wish to speak about any of the consent agenda items, we can entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 9. Oh, we have Vice Mayor DeBoscus.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to pull agenda item number 2 for a presentation.
Okay, is there anyone to speak to that here today? We'll get to you after we do these, though. Councilwoman Littlefield.
Thank you, Mayor. That was what I wanted to pull also, and there is someone here to speak on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, I will entertain a motion. We'll pull number 2, consent agenda item number 2, and I'll entertain a motion to approve items 1 and 3 through 9.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate your vote.
Aye.
All right. I will go ahead and take the presentation from consent agenda item number 2.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Borowski and council members. Mayor Tessier here with the Planning Department. The case before you today, can you hear me okay? Okay. 6CN, thank you. 6CN 2024 Palm Lane Residences. The subject site is located at the northwest corner of North 74th Street and East Palm Lane, as highlighted in yellow. And the surrounding uses, as you can see, is a place of worship to the north, some residential development to the east and south, as well as a residential healthcare facility to the west. So today, the applicant's requesting to rezone the site from single-family residential, R17, to medium-density residential, R3, for a new residential development. So before you is the applicant's site plan, which is comprised of 22 detached dwelling units, which includes also an amenity space kind of down here on the central south portion of the site, as well as an enclosed pool area, which is comprised of some turf and area for like open space. Vehicular access to the site is provided with driveways along both Palm Lane, and North 74th Street. And the applicant is also enhancing pedestrian circulation along the perimeter of the site, as well as internal to the site. And as part of a stipulation to this case, the applicant will also be undergrounding the power lines along the northern property line. Here we have the applicant's landscape plan, where they are providing a 35-foot landscape buffer setback along both of the street frontages, and that's going to be comprised of existing and proposed landscaping and mature trees. And then you can also see that landscaping is kind of spread throughout the internal of the site and along that amenity area, and there's that turf area and pools. That's just going to be a community amenity space for the residents that reside there. So I'll conclude my presentation with the key items of consideration. That includes that the project conforms with the general plan of 2035, as well as the Southern Scottsdale Character Area Plan. It is a redevelopment property within Southern Scottsdale. The applicant is not going to be requesting any amended development standards as part of this case. Again, they're going to be removing that power line along the northern property line. They are going to be providing that 35-foot wide landscape buffer along both street frontages. Citizen input was received, both support and opposition. And then lastly, Planning Commission heard this case at the May 28th hearing and voted 6-0. So that concludes my presentation. The applicant has prepared a full presentation, and they'll walk you through further detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. We have the applicant.
Thanks, Meredith, for getting the microphone to the right height for me. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. For the record, my name is Lauren Proper Potter, P.O. Box 1833, Tempe, Arizona 85280, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Palm Lane Residences. I'm going to keep the presentation sort of brief and just kind of hit on some of the highlights. I do have a full presentation, as Meredith stated, so happy to walk through any of the nitty-gritty details if you want to get into those things. But I think what I'd like to focus on this evening here is the nature of the project and some of the things that we've done in response to neighborhood feedback that really made this a great project. So the request tonight would accommodate a 22-unit for sale detached development. So each property is going to be condo platted, individual lots. They each have yards as well. As Meredith stated, we are very proud to be here tonight with unanimous approval recommended by the Planning Commission. A little bit of the site today, and then here's what we're proposing. This would be the site that we've got here. So the initial proposal was quite a bit more dense, quite a bit more intense. The initial request was for R5 zoning, your most intense residential zoning. It was also 3 stories with roof decks added, so kind of sort of almost effectively 4 stories in height. We got some pretty strong feedback from the neighborhood that they did not feel like that was in the character of the area, and the team went back to the drawing board. They reduced the density by almost half when they came back with this updated request that you see before you tonight. And so they reduced it from about 48 dwelling units. Now we have 22. The building heights went down pretty significantly. Those went down from almost that 4-story height, if you're counting that roof deck area, to 2 stories here. We're actually proposing just under 25 feet here for the maximum height allowed would be 30 in this district. 30 feet's also allowed in the surrounding single family. And there's also, as you can see here, we're consistent with what's in the immediate area on this kind of island that we're on. There's a 4-story multifamily complex that's just to the west of us, and then we're adjacent to 2 additional 2-story structures here. And here's just to give you a sense of the scale of those things. So it's a pretty appropriate fit here. We feel like this provides a good buffer from those uses down into the single family area. And so, again, these were just some of the changes. So decrease in zoning, decrease in density, height. We significantly enhanced those landscape buffers. There were also some questions about if there was sufficient guest parking previously. I'm happy to report we're overparked on this project. Every single unit has its own dedicated 2-story garage. We also provide 13 guest parking spaces as well. So one of the things that we did, I just sent an exhibit to Meredith yesterday in response to an email that was received. I just saw it from a neighbor who is in support but had some ideas. And a couple of those were to increase the wall height adjacent to the pool that's along Palm Lane, and then also discussing some amenity area for children. So we like to think that we want to integrate into the community. 8-foot walls kind of close projects off, especially 8-foot solid block walls. So what we're proposing is to keep that 6-foot block wall, but we would add 2 additional mature shade trees on the side of that wall that's closest to the neighborhood. Again, we're buffered. We've got a 35-foot landscape buffer there. We have Palm Lane. And then Michelle, who's watching online, she's one of the neighbors that lives directly across the street on Palm Lane. She came to Planning Commission in support. We've worked really hard with her through some of the changes from the initial proposal. Wasn't really well received to this proposal that now she's in support of. We're always happy to be here when we can work out some of those challenges with the neighbors and come to a project that everyone feels good about. As it relates to space for residents who might have small children, there is an amenity grassy area next to the pool. We certainly hope all children are supervised at all times, especially around pools. But we're really lucky that we're super close to El Dorado Park. We're less than a quarter mile. I just, while I was sitting for the other part of the hearing, I mapped it out. It's a 5-minute walk. So it's less than a quarter mile. El Dorado Park has amazing amenities. The city's invested a lot of money into it. There's an aquatic center, baseball diamond, 2 separate parks. We think that to the extent that children need to burn off a little bit more energy than they can in the private yards that they have or in this amenity area, it's a short walk to the park there. So we're lucky to be able to take advantage of that amenity that the city offers its residents. I think with that, I'll conclude. I suspect there might be some questions for me. I'm happy to answer those. Again, I do have more presentation. I know they can get kind of boring, so I'll stop here, but I'm happy to get more into it if anyone would like. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Councilwoman Whitehead.
Well, since no one else seems to want to speak, I'll just, I've been to at least 2 community meetings with this project, So I've had the benefit, and of course I know Michelle and I know the resident, I've spoken directly with the resident who most recently emailed in support with those requests. So like many projects that make it to the city council, this project has come a long way, baby. We've really done a lot, or the applicant has done a lot based on the input that you've received from our residents. So I'm not sure if some of my colleagues have specific questions. I was going to simply put in the record that the 2 mature trees would satisfy, it would be better than an 8-foot wall, and I would like that to be taken care of at the DRB hearing. So that was an issue. I just, again, a couple things that were concerning at the 2 meetings I attended. Parking, well, when you cut the unit count almost in half, you also have far more parking, adding the guest parking. Height, of course, this is a beautiful neighborhood, very historic, built in the 1950s and 60s. So keeping with the height, many of the design elements that have been added also match that mid-century modern kind of look. The short-term rentals, this is a neighborhood that's been ravaged by short-term rentals, so that clause. And then, as I said just a couple weeks ago, we have, in my time on council, we've really tried to get away from the large apartment complex and fill in this missing middle housing. And those are, that's what we're seeing here, for sale products that are townhome with yards, with garages, and so that fits that too. So I'm actually very pleased with this project. I think sets a nice high bar, and I'm so pleased that the residents support it because, again, I've been involved when it wasn't so much supported. So I'm waiting. Oh, it looks like there's some other speakers, so I'll stop here before I motion to approve the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Councilman Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. Lauren, good presentation. Yes, this project's come a long way. I have a few questions for you. I'm trying to get myself situated here. I like a lot about this project. I like that you are putting in detached, for sale houses with attached garages. I like that. Those are good amenities. I like that the power line is going away. Can you show us pictorially for the audience where the power line is being buried?
I can, Councilmember, although I might have to explain it. So top of the screen, that is our northern property line. That is where those power lines are. And actually, this is exciting. We just got word earlier this week from APS, SRP, that the demolition to get rid of those power poles is approved. So with your approval this evening, with approval at our upcoming DRB hearing, we're ready to get rid of those lines ASAP.
How many poles is that going to be? 3 or 4?
4 poles.
4 poles?
Councilmember,
Okay,
yes.
very good. I'm going to be following, I think do you know when this is coming to DRB if this passes today?
Councilmember, I think you are going to be my liaison.
Yes,
It,
yes.
we
I think we might have round 2.
Yes, 17th, July 17th.
Okay.
So we'll have another crack at this together.
I'm actually not going to be at that one. I'll be at the 10th.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to actually throw a jump ball to my colleagues, and you're going to get whoever takes it.
Can't wait. Thank you, Councilmember.
But I know. Just roll the dice, see who you get. I'm going to be following up, though, on the design, because it's very important to me that the architectural material and the cohesion for the area makes sense, matches. This is something that should lift up the area. It shouldn't be the average. It should bring up the average. And I think that you guys are committed to that. Can I get you to agree to that on record?
Absolutely, Councilmember. You've got my number. I've got yours. You probably wish I would lose it.
Is that a promise or a threat?
It depends. If I spoke during public comment, maybe it'd be
Okay.
taken one way versus up here, but yeah.
The trees that Councilmember Whitehead mentioned, are those going to be 36-inch trees?
Councilmember Graham, they will be 36 box. They're going to be the sweet acacias, so we're just we're filling out that double row of trees we've got there.
Okay, and so you're talking about 2 or 3. Can you show where, we got that
Yes.
testimony from Mr. Arvanitis or whatever, the neighbor, Arvantes. Where are those box trees? Because he was talking about 8-foot wall, cinder block wall,
Yes,
which,
absolutely. To whoever controls the overhead, could I get access to that really quick? I think it might just be easier to point. I have the black and white landscape plan. Of course, it's upside down. Okay, so if it's possible to
you got to, Lauren, you got to speak into the mic there. So for the people that are streaming at home and
Of course.
watching on TV.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. So those trees are located right here. So this is the row of 4 trees. These are those sweet acacias, and then these additional 3 trees here. Those are 2 different species, and they're all 36-inch box, so they'll all be installed as mature trees.
Okay.
And then this is the pool area that the neighbor was referencing. That 6-foot block wall is here. Here's our enhanced landscape buffer, that 35-foot, and then you get Palm Lane there.
Okay, we've got Commissioner Jeff Brand in the building. He's going to be on DRB. I hope he's going to look at the, he's waving his right hand. I hope he's going to look at the, he's a landscaping architect expert, so he's going to be looking at the cohesion and making sure all that makes sense.
Good, great. Thanks, Councilmember. Thank you.
Jeff, can you just nod to the council that you're going to be doing all that? Okay, he nodded.
Giving homework to the commissioners at the.
I'm getting
at the
everything
desk.
on record, you know?
No, I appreciate it, and we'll talk before we get to DRB.
Can they operate, just for the record, can they operate STRs in here?
They cannot. So, and I appreciate Councilmember Whitehead bringing that up. I didn't cover that, but so because these will be condo platted, we get more control over this, and so we have a note. The plat will be ready to go in kind of imminently. It actually we might have already filed it. There's a note on the plat and we've worked with your city attorney on this provision before. You might remember the case we did this on a few years ago, but we add a note on the plat. It's not your standard note. It just says, hey, we're going to be recording CCNRs in conjunction with this project. Those CCNRs are going to regulate things like common area maintenance, fees, and rental terms, and then they'll be limited to no less than 30 days. That's a provision that's going to be, we can't put it on the plat, but that's something that'll be in the CCNRs.
Yeah, I guess where I'm going with this is that I'm generally disinclined to, approve more density, but when a developer comes to us and they bring overwhelming benefits to our community, raising standards, burying power lines, expensive landscaping, restricting or reducing short-term rentals. I like also the parking requirements are 44 plus 4. You guys are doing 61 parking spots. So can you just put on record you're confident that there's not going to be an overflow onto Palm Lane for all their guests and
Councilmember Graham, so I can't promise that if someone has a birthday party, they won't park on Palm Lane, just like the single-family residents. However,
abuse of it, yeah.
We're not relying on parking on Palm Lane. We're providing, for the record, 57 parking spaces. That's what I have on my fact sheet. Every once in a while, I do the math right on that. So I think it's a little bit less than what you've got, but to keep it kosher on the record, 57, and 46 would be required.
Yeah, if I was a developer, I'd be looking at Palm Lane as as sort of an exhaust or sort of an outflow of overflow, of parking. But I think that you guys are going to be pretty solid with parking containment. And then I have one staff question, city staff question about this project. If it can just be sort of walked through for the general public. This does not require a general plan amendment. Can you explain why? I think I just called up from the bullpen. Adam, you're on.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor Borowski and Councilman Graham, Adam Rohn will be down here shortly to respond to that question. Thank you.
Councilmember Graham, Mayor Borowski, members of council, this site is designated by the community's voter-ratified general plan as suburban neighborhoods. Within that density range and with what the applicant's proposing, there's no change in land use category, so with suburban neighborhoods and a density less than 8 dwelling units per acre. This conforms with the community's general plan.
That's another factor for me, is that I really am always disinclined for zoning requests to amend the general plan, and I'm pleased that this doesn't pass that threshold. So for now, those are my questions, Ms. Potter, and thank you, Adam, city staff. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor DeBoscus.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What are these residences estimated to sell for?
So there's 4 different unit types, Vice Mayor DeBoscus, ranging from 2,100 to like 2,700 and some change square feet. So there will be a range for sure. The target price point is $400 to $500 a square foot, which is similar to what the single-family residences are selling for in the neighborhood. So if you're doing the math in your head, I saw you there. We're looking at like high 9s or possibly in the $1 million plus range.
Wow, okay. I just wanted to reiterate for those who are thinking about projects like this, what I find attractive about it, the for sale aspect. I like how much you guys have worked with the community and really taken a look at this particular piece of property and tried to figure out what's the best fit for the community and that particular property, and then taking a look at how we can make it better, burying the power lines, the roads are nicely done, the landscape's nicely done, and then the general uplift of the community. I'm also disinclined to be in favor of more density, but with the size of the homes here, and with the way that it's laid out nicely, I think that it's a good compromise. Also, I appreciate that you haven't pushed the limits. So you could have gone higher, you could have gone more dense, and so I appreciate that you've been very thoughtful about that. But mostly the overall sense of this project is just it's very thoughtfully done. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman McAllen.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Lauren. I appreciate you taking the time to give us an additional presentation and to answer my phone calls. I had many of the similar questions. I grew up not far from this area. This is a beautiful addition to the neighborhood. And with that, I move that we pass this, which is ordinance number 4675.
I'll second. And I'd like to speak to the second. Good job. This is the type of product I think we need in our upcoming residential projects. So very well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Really appreciate that.
Councilwoman Littlefield has a question.
No, I would just like to thank you for listening to the concerns of the nearby residents and answering them and responding to them materially and making the changes that they requested as much as you can. I also grew up in this area as a kid, and so South Scottsdale is very important to keep up a good quality of lifestyle and a good look and feel and texture, and I think you've done that very well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember.
All right. I don't see any other questions or comments. So with that, all those in favor of the motion which is on the table, consent agenda item number 2, please indicate your approval.
Aye.
That motion passes, and that concludes our consent agenda. Moving on to regular agenda, item number 10. City Council will consider this item, let's see. Item 10 is a request of City Council to consider and adopt the following resolutions authorizing use of the Tourism Development Fund for fiscal year 2025 and 26, events that meet the criteria of the following tourism event funding programs. Number 1, resolution number 1320, authorizing the event venue fee funding program with myself executing individual agreements with each producer. Number 2, resolution number 13421, authorizing the community event funding program with myself executing individual agreements with each event producer. Number 3, resolution number 13422, authorizing the matching event advertising funding program, the use of tourism development funds allocated toward non-contract destination marketing events, and with myself executing individual agreements with each event producer. And finally, resolution 13423, authorizing the event development funding program, subject to council approval of such agreements, and authorizing staff to use the event development guidelines to evaluate whether an event qualifies for funding. And tonight, we have Steve Gigama,
Yes, that was close.
Tourism Development Manager for our presentation.
Mayor Borowski, Vice Mayor, City Council. I'm here to present to you our city event funding programs for this current fiscal year, talk a little bit about the background, the process we go through, and have some proposed changes for council's consideration here this evening. So to begin with, before I get into the background, I'll talk a little about the funding source for our event funding programs. Per ordinance number 4534 and financial policy 10, 9% of the city's bed tax dollars are allocated to tourism events and event development, or can be allocated, I should say. So some background. On an annual basis, the Tourism Development Commission, the commission responsible for making recommendations for bed tax dollars and also developing programs to spend those dollars, reviews annually the programs. We do that over about 2 public meetings. We spend extensive time on that. And that's to ensure that goals are met, that the process is effective, and the return on investment is met, and fair, equitable value is also achieved by these programs. So these are some of our general event requirements. There's some consistency and nuances in most of our programs. There's 2 main objectives, though: put heads in beds and market the destination through these events. But these are aligned with our general requirements. They align with our tourism drivers: arts, culinary, golf, sports, Western. They meet attendance thresholds. They're accessible. The majority of the event is held in Scottsdale. They support the Scottsdale brand and image, and open to the public, no private events. So here are the 4 event funding programs I want to briefly review: the event venue fee funding program, the community event funding program, the matching event advertising fund program, and the event development program. These were all unanimously recommended by the TDC at the April 15th meeting this year. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, these programs are funded through bed tax dollars related to the 9%. And payments are generally made post-event upon contractual fulfillment. This chart shows here our 4 event funding programs for last fiscal year. We funded 43 events for these programs, give you perspective of where the applications were coming in from, and we spent roughly $1.1 million. And that was from $2.6 million that was available in the 9%. This year we're anticipating $2.9 million, as mentioned here, for the current fiscal year, I should say. So getting into the programs, these are some of the outlines of the venue fee program. This is the first one. This is one of our newer events programs. It's been around over 10 years, but it's one of our newer ones. It is as it sounds. It's for participant-driven events, youth sports, basketball, baseball, whatever it might be. We provide funds to reimburse the tournament director or program, if you will, related to expenditures that are made for city fields. It's been a popular program. It's growing. Up to $12,000 is available for reimbursement. Like I said, we put this in over 10 years ago, and it seems to be doing fairly well. We're getting a lot of participation in this program. So some of the updates that we're looking at and related to program changes. The first one is a calculation. I'll go into a little more of an explanation. So last fiscal year, we're at 636 rooms were required to get $12,000 for fully reimbursed tournament. That's going up to 657. The reason for that, it's a calculation. What we do is we take the average daily rate of our calendar year to offset any seasonality, and we do a basic math calculation. How many rooms is it going to take to make that $12,000 to make sure we have fair, substantial, equal value? This particular year, it's 657 rooms, or room nights, I should say. Rooms, sorry. The next one is our community event funding program. As it states, it's locally significant events. It's one of our older programs. It's been around for some time. It attracts visitors, of course, to the event. It adds to our cachet of assets that we have here in our destination. We evaluate it based on attendance, duration, longevity, and seasonality. There's funding levels for each of that criteria I just reviewed, which kind of allows us to allocate potentially what the funding amount could be for that particular event. It also helps the commission, when they do their evaluation, look at that and say, hey, I think you're falling here based on staff recommendation. Up to $30,000 is available for production fees and advertising. Some of the program updates we're looking at for this one this year, we're reducing the seasonality period, which is one of those criteria I just mentioned. Relatively small amount available in that criteria. We're going to July, September, as opposed to May through December last year. And the reason being, our research is starting to show that our seasonality is kind of going away. We're kind of more balanced throughout the year through our research that we're doing as well. So we reduced it this year. The Matching Event Advertising Fund program is as it sounds. This is one of our older programs we've had for a number of years. It's for advertising outside Maricopa County for events. Up to $30,000 is available. And it is as it sounds, it's a match. So if you spend $60,000 in marketing, direct dollar, we'll match you $30,000. And if it's $30,000, we'll match you $15,000. We have roughly 2 or 3 events who participate in this program. Barrett-Jackson and the Arabian Horse Show are 2 participants. There are no program recommendations in this particular program for this fiscal year coming up. So I'll stop right there on those 3 that I went through. I'm going to kind of spend a moment on the process. So the 3 I just went through, event venue fee program, community, and matching event, once those applications go through the TDC for vetting, make a recommendation for a funding amount, those contracts go directly to the mayor for signature. The reason being is that about 10 years ago, we wanted to expedite the process, make it more streamlined, make it available year-round, so that was more user-friendly. And we found this has worked effectively over the past decade related to moving this forward. They're also very well vetted. The criteria I went over, one's matching, one's based on room nights, one's based on some financial analysis that's done in the community, so we feel comfortable with that. It's worked well. The next one I'm going to go over is Event Development Funding Program. I'll tell you the little parameters involved in that. Those contracts, after TDC recommendation, go to City Council. So the Event Development Funding Program boosts Scottsdale visibility through media coverage and enhance our hotel stays, I should say. The funding range is $30,000 to $75,000 for marketing and production. And one key element here we're going to emphasize this year, the next bullet point there. If an event participates on the last one for 3 years, they have the option to move to one of those 3 I just went through. And once they move down after 3 years, we won't allow them to come back into this event development funding program. The idea behind it is they're sustainable. We provided funding over 3 years. Any activation or enhancement they make should be handled by the producer. Some of our general proposed changes that the commission wanted to put in place this year, add a charitable component in the application worksheets. We can't contractually make that enforceable, but we can make sure, so the TDC just wants to ask that question. We added, in terms of ineligible events, we added expos, because they're very similar to trade shows that are listed there. So the action requested of council tonight, as was reviewed by the mayor, adopt resolution 13420 related to the event venue fee program, adopt resolution 13421 related to the community program, adopt resolution number 1342 related to the matching event advertising fund program, and the last, adopt resolution number 1342 for the event development funding program, the process, the allocation of funds. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Steve. We do have a request to speak for public comment, and that is Steve Sutton on this item.
Honorable Mayor Borowski, I think you all know who I am and where I live. That's going to be quick. A lot has been said over the last few years about listening to residents and about residents first. I hope that with this resolution and all resolutions that you have before you, that you are truly, before making decisions, listening to your residents and putting them first. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any questions or comments from the council. Oh, there we go. Vice Mayor DeBoscus.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we could go back to the initial presentation, the 1.1 million, that was spent in the...
Oh, the chart?
So that was spent in the 24-25, and you're anticipating a 2.9 for 25-26, is that what you said?
That's my understanding of the estimate for bed tax collections and the city portion related to the 9%.
Okay. And so how are we calculating the ROI back to the city?
Well, generally through our process, we receive a post-event report, which is identified in your packets with the agreement. We'll receive that to ensure that they're contractually compliant, that they meet the deliverables, the contract deliverables that they say they are going to achieve. And generally, we position a lot of our deliverables based on marketing return. Some hotel stays, as I mentioned, related to the venue fee, but we ensure the return on investment is related to the marketing value we get back. Out of this number, I looked at it this afternoon, we went back and looked at all the marketing spends from all these events, 43, it was over $3 million that they were spending to market their event as well as the destination. So that's one aspect of a return on investment.
And what do you estimate would happen if we didn't provide this funding?
For these programs, well, that probably will eliminate that marketing value I just mentioned. Events are a very key component related to the overall destination. We've received quite a bit of research information that people are coming here for events. Our participant-driven events are increasing. Our large tourism events are bringing in people, visitors, who spend not only for the hotel room, but economic impact. So there could be some loss associated with that by not investing in events.
Well, if we didn't provide so much funding, perhaps those events would still occur, though.
Yes, there is a possibility, but I think the main aspect related to that is we have the opportunity to partner with them. We have the opportunity to develop contracts that identify marketing deliverables that are valuable to the city and what we want to achieve related to our brand and what Experience Scottsdale does. We would lose that through a contract if we don't have it related to these programs. That's a potential aspect.
So you noted in the community events slide
Yes.
that these are programs that are attracting visitors that are already in Scottsdale. So you're dragging locals out of their houses. Is that what we're?
Well, I would hope they would enjoy that activity and that event. Generally, our community event's been around for some time. The idea is that it's locally significant, like Parada, the rodeo, et cetera. But if there's a visitor here, potentially they may want to attend that event. Our Western Week has grown quite a bit. There's another example related to those components. We receive emails throughout the year about people enjoy that event. They travel in. They may be a long-term visitor. They may be here just that weekend. So it's a balance between residents and also visitors.
Okay. And then you were making a distinction between some program funding is approved by council and some is not filtered through council on an individual program basis.
Correct.
Let's talk a little bit more about the ones that don't come to council individually. Tell us again what those are.
Well, that's the event venue fee program, the community, and the matching event advertising fund program. And as I mentioned, the reason we did that well over 10 years ago was to streamline the process. We also, per the applications and approval here, there's quite a bit of vetting that goes into those programs, as well as event development. But the Tourism Development Commission provides that recommendation, and we streamline it to go directly to the mayor for signature.
And how much goes with those three programs? How much are we talking about that does not go through council's review?
Doing the math here, basically it looks close to, if I'm off, about a little over 330,000 related to those three event programs.
And you're anticipating that number to jump up to 2.9 next year?
Well, we won't necessarily spend that. And I should mention that the 1.1 is the spend in these four programs related to those event development.
But you said earlier that you're expecting that for next year it'll be the 2.9.
That's what's available. I'm sorry if it's confusing.
Okay.
That's what's available.
So what are we estimated to spend for those three programs for 25-26?
I would say it's fairly consistent. I would anticipate probably about the same amount. The range in terms of what events are eligible for is not changing. So I could see it changing. I mean, we may see some fluctuation in different programs. It just depends how many events want to apply for funding. Some are more popular than others, as you can see.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think I would be more comfortable if council was reviewing some more of these events. That's $300,000 a year is a lot of money to not go by council. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question about that discussion. The bed tax ordinance, when it was passed, I think it was 2010, it requires the city to spend a certain portion of the funds that we receive on events, doesn't it?
Correct, per the ordinance number 4534 and financial policy 10.
Yeah, okay. So that's not, we can't just not support the events because that's what we're supposed to be doing with the bed tax that the city is allocated. Okay, thank you. And then I see a couple other questions. Councilwoman Whitehead.
Yeah, I was going to stress that too, that tourism tax dollars are voter approved and they're from bed tax dollars. So I think often our residents confuse whether or not how much authority we have on those dollars. We don't. And if those dollars are coming from our residents, they're not. So I wanted to ask you, Mr. Gingama, if you want to give some examples of some events, for instance, that came to us and got that first 3-year funding that have kind of been continued and have been greatly successful.
Off the top of my head, the polo event that takes place in October, that participated in the program for 3 years, and it was sustainable and grew over time. That's one example. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of some others. I believe the Sun Circuit Horse event also participated in 3 years, a couple of years back. They're another example of the ones that have gone through 3 years and became successful and participate in other programs.
Okay, so I do have a couple comments and with regards to some that my colleagues have already made. We have the Tourism Development Commission because on that commission we have, unlike some of our commissions, we have very specific rules on which residents can participate on that commission, and they are experts in the tourism field. So I will say that I'm very uncomfortable about taking any of the funding away from that commission and bringing it up to the city council because while I think we can always review and provide input, I don't think we're the tourism experts. When I moved here 30 years ago, the type of tourism we had in the city was very limited. It was narrow. We had big events. And again, we have to spend these tourism dollars. So the question is, do we want to try to expand the types of events, the months of the years months of the year we have these events, and the demographics that we're attracting to our city? That's really what's the question that we're posing today. By having these funds that bring in, whether it's the professional chess tournaments, or I think the Persian festival, we've really broadened volleyball tournaments. We've expanded who comes and how many room nights that results. And I think the success of the programs like this one and just generally our tourism policies have created this abundance of dollars. So the 2.9 million, that's not because we're spending more, it's because we're so successful we can actually expand who we fund and bring in more events. And I think the polo event's a great example because what a smashing success, but it seemed like an odd idea when it first came. And so these small dollar amounts really helped make that happen. So I'm actually very supportive because perhaps I'm more comfortable with this having been on the council longer and seen the incredible success. So I am going to motion to approve item 10, resolution number 13420, authorizing the event venue fee funding program, resolution number 13421, authorizing the community event funding program, and resolution number 13422, authorizing the matching event advertising funding program, and resolution number 13423, authorizing the event development funding program.
I'll second that.
Would you like to speak to your second, Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Steve, thank you for the presentation. I was thinking of some of the events that have grown over in my 60 years of living here in Scottsdale. Some of the smaller events, like the rain event, has been funded, I think, 2 years in a row. It's going on its third event. They started with that at Westworld. And they came, to the Tourism Commission asking for help. And so these professionals that serve on this commission are industry experts, and they're helping these groups who have an event, they have an idea, and it's like they come and they engulf them with suggestions, they help them, they critique, maybe sometimes when things aren't maybe planned as well as they could be. So I know the experts on this commission work very hard to support the smaller events so that they can become bigger. And the polo event, just this year when you funded it again, when I went to that meeting, it's now a 2-day event and the third largest event in Scottsdale. That is a big thing, and it's all because it started at the Tourism Commission, small, went big. So I'm elated to second this. Thank you so much for your work.
Thanks.
Councilman Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Gigama, good presentation. This is a good conversation.
Thank you.
I think that the Vice Mayor brought up some really good questions. The Vice Mayor brought up some really good questions. And I don't think she was even close to talking about not using the funds for the 9% tourism development funds. And I'm not suggesting that you said that, but that's kind of what I heard a little bit of that up here. And what I understand is that we're talking about the bed taxes. The 9% of bed taxes go to this pot of money, and it's for tourism-related events and event development. So it's about...
I'm sorry, sir.
Go ahead.
That's the 9%, correct?
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Funds may be allocated for events from the non-marketing portion of unused funds within the Tourism Development Fund, correct?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Funds may be allocated for events from the non-marketing portion of unused funds within the Tourism Development Fund.
That is correct.
Okay. Can you say a little more about that, by the way, before I go to my next question?
Is that related to resolution number 13422?
Yeah.
Okay, and that little term in there, non-contract?
Yeah.
Okay. That's more for clarification. The non-contract destination marketing is Experience Scottsdale.
Yeah.
We put that in there to further define the difference.
Oh, so that's not part of the 9%?
No, the 9% is related to the city funds.
Yeah. I understand that, but this says, per financial policy number 10, 9% of total revenue derived from the bed tax is for tourism-related events and event development.
I think policy 10 relates to the city bed tax after the split takes place. I don't know if anybody from...
That's the funds we're talking about.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Caton, you seem to be reaching for your button. Am I pressing your buttons?
Madam Mayor and Councilman Graham, it might be helpful for the audience, too, if we just articulate the 100% of the bed tax and how it's allocated. So we have 50%, and I'll look to do this in combination with my colleague here. 50% is for destination marketing.
Right.
45% of that goes to Experience Scottsdale, and we keep 5% to do destination marketing within our internal function. So that's 50%. The other 50% has some flexibility. 25% goes, I think it's 25% goes to kind of general operations. It helps support some police department functions and...
Correct, that may be lower as a percentage, but you're correct, some go to the general fund.
And then we have a 12%, a 9%, and a 4%. The 9% is what you're referencing. The 4% is some administration, I believe, and then I think...
And research.
Yes. Yeah, in the research. And so then we have some administrative costs that are also allocated within that area. So there is some flexibility to the 50%. We call it the city portion.
Correct.
That's referred to. Then the other 50 is for destination marketing, if you will.
Mr. Caton, that's very illustrative. And so Mr. Gigama, which bucket are we talking about for this particular agenda item?
For this funding, it's coming from the city portion that was just
Thank you.
reviewed by the city manager.
Thank you. Yeah, we're talking about the city portion. And that's what I heard Vice Mayor posing questions about, because we have hundreds of thousands of dollars every year that council isn't approving.
That would be in the parameter I mentioned, about 300,000 that goes to the mayor for signature.
So I understand when some of my colleagues say that we have tourism experts approving that, but I would argue up here we're not really experts in anything in one way or the other, and we're approving everything. So what would it make this, pot of money from tourism different than that pot of money? And Mr. Gigama, I'm sorry to cut you off. No. This isn't really direction to you. It's really more just telling charter officers that, I would like to see all of this even just come to consent to City Council. I think that makes a lot of sense because everything that the experts vote on anyway comes to us already. On top of that, when you have, unelected commissioners that are deciding hundreds of thousands of dollars, there's no electoral check to that. There's no checks and balance. There's no resident accountability. If I'm a resident that finds a lot of displeasure in what the Tourism Development Commission is approving, I pretty much can't do anything about it except indirectly go after people I think might have approved him or her on the Tourism Development Commission. So I think it could be something to talk about in the future. Mr. Gigama, one other thing that this may actually surprise you, but I actually wish we were spending more money. May surprise you to hear me say that. And let me explain what I mean by that. How much money for the section of funds that we're talking about came in this year? How much was, because we spent 1.1 million. How much came in?
Well, that would be, I don't know if we can specifically identify the relation to 1.1. We have seen some increases over the number of years in our bed tax collections. That continues. Some of that may relate to economic impact. Oh.
I'm going to cut you off because we got
Sure.
acting City Treasurer Scott. Scott, if you could just identify yourself for the audience.
For the record, Scott Saline, Budget Director. We project about $2.6 million of the 9% would be about $2.6 million in fiscal year 24-25, the fiscal year that just ended.
So we're spending like a little more than half. It's just not, we're not spending enough. So are there any, maybe Scott, this is Mr. Saline, this is for you, but are there any restrictions for the money to be, I know these are, let me back up. Are these considered restricted funds? Legally restricted?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Graham, yes, they would be restricted. I'm just reading the financial policies that would dictate how we can utilize those funds. 9% for tourism-related events and event development.
Okay. So is there any restriction for, if the money just goes and sits in a fund, in a pot, is there any restriction for how long it can sit there?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Graham, I do not believe so, but I will have to look into that and get an answer for you.
That seems like, yeah, I would be curious to know. What is the balance of that fund as of the end of last fiscal year, just an approximation? Or maybe you don't have that number. That's as of yesterday, so that's of...
I might need to research that number and get it back to you. We were projecting for the entire tourism non-destination marketing fund an ending balance of, well, I guess that's not really what you're asking. So allow me to look into that and get back to you.
It just seems like we're not spending it, and I'm just wondering, concerned if, Vice Mayor Dabauskas asks why. I think maybe the answer is you're just getting a deficit of applications.
The amounts that's allocated here or identified here, which should be relatively about the same, are for these 4 funding programs from that estimate that we talked about. Actually, that particular allocation, the 2.9 in this particular case, we spend those dollars. Some events don't go through these programs. For example, Canal Convergence comes out of an allocation of this portion of funds. Scottsdale is another one. That doesn't go through this program. So those are funding expenditures. Some aspects of Western Week go into that and take up the majority of that estimated amount on a total fiscal year. We were just covering these 4 programs in terms of identification of the allocation. I think it's fair to say we spend the majority of those.
We're picking on this one because we're talking about this one. Scott just said, this acting city treasurer just said it's going to bring in $2.6 million, and we're budgeting to spend $1.1 million. That's what I heard. That's a lot of excess. It's kind of creating a slush fund.
Well, I think we use that excess, as I mentioned, for the events that I just went through. that
Right.
don't go through these programs. So
Right.
generally on an annual basis, fiscal year, those funds are being spent.
Okay, so then you're saying there's a surplus that we're applying to other
Correct,
uses?
yes. An
Okay.
example, one that doesn't go through the program that was
Okay.
approved by City Council.
Okay.
There was a tent approved for the Arabian Horse Show.
Yes.
It's part of their event, but we allocated funds that did not go through this program, that
Okay.
came out of that fund.
Okay, so we
Does
can
that make
kind
sense?
so we can kind of ratchet down, sort of the strident disbelief about how this is voter approved, because we are taking it and we already are taking it and repurposing it. What I don't want to see is basically a big pot of money growing every year. Our visitors are paying that. Our residents are paying that. I want to put that to use for them. I want to spend that dollar. I want events to be here and happen. And so I don't want a big fund. I didn't mean to use the word slush fund, but a big fund that's growing in perpetuity. So maybe Mr. Salim, maybe you can follow up with that. And Mr. Gigam, I appreciate your responses to my questions. Let me take a quick look at my, just let me reemphasize that I think maybe, I would maybe consider at some point hundreds of thousands of dollars not going through council. Maybe we can at least throw those on consent. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. The city attorney had an indication to speak.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. One thing I want to point out is there is an underlying ordinance that controls these expenditures. And presumably our financial policies are based on this underlying ordinance. And the 50% that we've been talking about tonight, what the ordinance literally says, and it's section 447 of our tax code, says it shall be divided among tourism-related event support, tourism research, tourism-related capital projects, and other eligible uses as determined by city ordinance and state law. Obviously, the other eligible uses would include the public safety contribution.
Point of privilege. Luis, can you just speak a little louder?
Oh,
sorry, Mayor.
My apologies. So the 50%, Mayor and members of the council, is controlled by ordinance, section 447. And presumably our financial policies are based on this, and the ordinance itself doesn't provide specific percentages of how the 50% should be spent. But it does say it has to be divided amongst tourism-related event support, tourism research, tourism-related capital projects, and other eligible uses as determined by city ordinance and state law. Some of those eligible resources or uses, would be what we're using to pay for some public safety services. So your financial policies that say 9% need to be spent on events, I think I heard that earlier, those could be changed because the underlying ordinance which controls it doesn't specify particular percentages. I just bring this up because I think it's relevant to this conversation.
Thank you. Councilwoman Whitehead.
So I just have a quick question for the city manager based on the comments of the vice mayor and Councilman Graham. So there seems to be this discomfort, obviously with a DRB case, if a council member can bring that case up to the council. I imagine that's the same, but I don't have a confirmation. If our tourism board approves a event, can that be reviewed by the council? Maybe this is a question, I'm not sure, for the city manager or Luis, our city attorney.
Mayor and members of the council, absolutely. What I believe staff is trying to do here is to delegate certain authority to themselves and certain ministerial authority to the mayor. There's no reason that these individual events couldn't go to the city council and be approved. I'm assuming that they do it this way to make it more expeditious.
Right, so we could keep that efficiency, but still have that check. If there's, because it really has been incredibly successful in just broadening the types of events, the types of the demographics and the months that we have events. So I'm really supportive of it, but I do like that there's a check if any member of the council is uncomfortable with a decision that we could bring it up. I am done. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor DeBoscus.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think I'm just if it's on, as Councilmember Graham mentioned, I agree with you. I'm supportive of these events. What I really like is this event development for 3 years to get someone up and running and going and help them with that. I think that's really smart to limit the amount of time on there. I'd like to see a little bit more focus on specific ROIs and maybe tell us some of your success stories when you're doing these presentations so that we can see we invested $30,000. This is what we got out of our money. I think the residents would like to know that we're getting good value for our dollars. But also, I think we like to know what we are funding and whatnot, and I think it's good to put it on the consent agenda. We do that today with some of these events, and we don't hold them up. So I would just like to see it. I'm always nervous when we're talking about large dollars amounts. I think we should have more exposure. More eyeballs on it is always good. But there's nothing to be afraid of for the people to see how much we're spending on things. So.
All right, I don't see any additional requests to speak. We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate your vote.
Councilman Quasman, we're voting on the tourism item.
I'm an aye.
Thank you.
I'm an aye.
Thank you. This would be the second public comment time for non-agendized items, but I don't see that we have any of those. So we'll just go ahead and move on to item number 11, which is receipt of citizens' petitions. We don't have any of those either, do we? Okay. I think this is the last. Lastly, we have item number 12, which is under mayor and council items. And we will turn to our boards, commissions, and committees 2024 annual report presentations. Tonight we have the annual presentations, discussions, and possible direction regarding key accomplishments and major actions taken from our Building Advisory Board of Appeals, Development Review Board, and Neighborhood Advisory Commission. And who will be speaking on behalf of these items?
Mayor, I'll be introducing the item.
Okay, thanks.
Honorable Mayor and City Council members, starting with today's council meeting, the chairs or vice chairs of many of our boards and commissions will present an overview of their annual report, including, as the mayor mentioned, accomplishments, challenges, and future projects to the mayor and council. After the brief presentation, the council can ask questions or provide feedback. In the past, the council reviewed and accepted the annual board and commission report as a consent agenda item. Based on input from some council members and board and commission members, the city clerk's office worked with the city manager's office on the new process that is being implemented tonight to allow boards and commissions to have more direct interaction with the council. We are planning for up to 3 to 4 boards and commissions presentations per council meeting, with these presentations continuing into the fall. We will not be including boards that deal with personnel issues, such as the Judicial Appointments Advisory Board and the Public Safety Personnel Retirement Board, or bodies that are somewhat independent of the city, such as the Industrial Development Authority. Additionally, the Budget Review Commission, BRC, will not present this year, as the annual reports represent activity from 2024, and the BRC was created in 2025. After the presentations are completed, the annual report for all boards and commissions will be added as a consent agenda item for council consideration and possible acceptance. As this is the first time with this new process, any comments from the council would be greatly appreciated for future planning purposes. I do want to thank the mayor, council, and board and commission members for their feedback. I also want to thank City Manager Greg Caton and his team for their partnership on this new process, and Deputy City Clerk Rommel Cordova for his efforts in working with the boards and commission members and staff liaisons to prepare for these meetings. Finally, I am very appreciative of the board and commission members and staff liaisons who worked on these presentations and are here tonight to present. For today's meeting, as the mayor mentioned, we have 3 presentations. First up is the Building Advisory Board of Appeals. We have our chair, their chair, Julian Anderson, and staff representative Michael Clack to present to the council.
Welcome. Good evening. Thanks for being here. Is your button pushed? There we go.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Michael Clack. I am the building official for the city of Scottsdale, and I'm the liaison for the Building Advisory Board of Appeals. And with me today is the chair of that board, Mr. Julian Anderson. If you don't mind, I'd like to briefly just go over what the board is made up of and what the responsibilities of the board are. And the next slide, we have the board purpose and makeup. The purpose of the Building Advisory Board of Appeals is to hear and decide appeals of orders, decisions, and determinations made by the building official. That would be me. And relative to the application and interpretation of construction codes adopted by the city of Scottsdale. The board also makes recommendation on the adoption and amendments to those codes to the City Council. The Building Advisory Board of Appeals consists of 7 public members appointed at large by the City Council. Members appointed to the Building Advisory Board of Appeals must be qualified by experience and training to pass on matters pertaining to building construction. Just speaking very briefly on the next slide, key accomplishments and major actions taken. We have 3 from this past report. Discussion and amendments to the rules of the board. A vote was taken and was approved unanimously. There was discussion regarding the amendment to the 2021 International Residential Code requiring lowering access to air conditioning filters located in ceiling. The motion to approve and concept failed, but it is a continuing discussion that goes on with the board. There was also a presentation of the shade and tree plan for the city presented by Justin Azevedo with the design laboratory. No action was taken. Regarding upcoming opportunities, challenges, or outcomes, we continue to monitor legislation at the state and federal level that may impact city building codes. There is an ongoing review of current City of Scottsdale specific code amendments, and we are also continuing to take a look at plan review timeframes, recruiting, and training experienced staff. And with that, if you don't mind, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Anderson, who is the chair of the board, for any comments he may have.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, council members, thank you to Michael Clack. He gave a good report on our activities. We're a very technical board. We don't get into a lot of controversy, and so I don't have anything to add, but happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here and for your service. Councilman Graham.
Nothing much to add. Thank you for your service. I started my service on Building Advisory Board of Appeals. It was a great term. I don't know if they missed me or not. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Whitehead.
I think I like this new format. Short but sweet, but that was a great presentation, and there were things I definitely didn't know you were doing, so thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Whitehead. Oh. I was thinking McAllen, so would you like to say anything, Councilwoman McAllen? That's what.
Thank you so much for your presentation and for your diligence on following up on state legislation. I know that we've been affected, all the cities have been affected on state legislation, and being vigilant is really important, so we thank you for that.
Thank you.
I think that's all we have for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, next up we have the Development Review Board, and presenting tonight is Vice Chair Jeff Brand and Staff Representative Brad Carr. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. Brad Carr with the Planning Department. I am the Board of DRB Liaison. It is my distinct privilege this evening to be joined by Jeff Brand to my right. He is a partner with the international firm of Nelson Partners and happens to be the vice chair of our board of Development Review Board. So it is our pleasure to be here this evening to describe the Development Review Board, give you some background, and answer any questions you may have. Next slide, please. So as stated on the screen here, the purpose of the Development Review Board is to maintain the quality of development and that high quality of standards for Scottsdale for the architectural design and layout of proposed development plans within the city. That includes commercial developments, preliminary plats for residential subdivisions, and includes the site planning, building design, and the relationship of the proposed development with the surrounding community. The Development Review Board is comprised of 7 members. 2 of those members are rotating members, one of which is a city council member, and the other is a planning commission member. Those 2 members rotate on a 3-month basis. The other 5 members are appointed by the city council for 3-year terms. And those are revolving terms through that 3-year period. As of note, this particular Development Review Board and Commission is unique in that it seeks to add members of the community that are in the development community, whether that be architects like Mr. Brand, landscape architects, engineers, real estate agents, other people that are within the development community or what are on the board and make a composition of the board. So with that background, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Mr. Brand for some of our key accomplishments.
Thank you, Brad, and thanks for the honor of sitting before the board before the council. This is the first time that we've done this, so my first time actually meeting Mayor. Again, good to see you, Vice Mayor and City Council. And just on a personal note, as someone who's been practicing architecture here in Scottsdale for 25 years, it's really an honor to be able to be on the board and help to shape quality development within the city. We all know that when these buildings get built, they're here for a long time. So Brad outlined the general purpose of the board, but I think on a personal level, it's to ensure that the views of the council and of the city and the citizens, that we're upholding the quality that we all expect here in Scottsdale, and through the approval of the guidelines and ordinances that govern development here. The key accomplishments, I think this is an outline of some of the major projects that have gone through the DRB action and approval with ASM, MAC, Banner. Again, the Old Town Scottsdale Urban Design and Architectural Guidelines update. So this is something that I'm not sure how familiar with all of the guidelines that everyone is here on a council level, but there's different use type guidelines, there's different character area guidelines, and then there's overall zoning ordinance that we use to govern all these projects. And this is from time to time, as projects and as building techniques and other things change, there may be a need to update the guidelines that are governing what we do. So this is the purpose of the update of the Old Town guidelines, as well as the headwaters, the residential healthcare facility. So these are major projects, questions, we can answer those. I think Brad's got a slide on the next one, what our upcoming project. The Fairmont Princess, there's from what we see on the agenda, that there's some major work going on in the park. It's a project that I'll actually be recusing from because it's a project that I'm leading in our firm, the Erickson Senior Living Project. And then I think a point of discussion that we want to make sure we're in alignment with is the multifamily residential development design guidelines. So if I've heard something regularly on DRB, maybe that's discussed the most, it's number one, the color white. I'm not sure if everyone watches the DRB hearings, but constantly we are talking about the color white and its presence in the city, but also the look, the impact, the feel, and how multifamily residential should be done and developed within the city. So that's all I have for right now. I'd love to answer any questions or have any dialogue or conversation.
I see a couple of questions. Councilman Graham.
I didn't say this last time, but Mr. Carr, thank you for being here and being a good liaison. And Mr. Clack, I didn't say this to you earlier, but thank you for being a liaison to these volunteers, really, community volunteers that we appoint and entrust to liaison between you, city staff, and the city council. Some things I wonder, DRB is incredibly invaluable as far as when you think about who we are as a city and you think about, well, what do we look like as a city? And you guys have an enormous impact on that question. I just wonder sometimes, is DRB, let me back up. We have a planning commissioner on DRB that rotates, and then we have a council member that rotates on DRB. Is that written in the stars? Is that statutory, or is that just the way it's set up, Mr. Carr?
Yes, Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Graham, it is within our zoning ordinance, I believe, as well as the bylaws for the board, that they have those 2 rotating positions.
So council could change that if they wanted. Sometimes I wonder about that, because when, somebody like Mr. Brand's expertise is on there, if you had more of those types, would the city be better served? And I'm just kind of asking these questions rhetorically. We have council members going up there for a rotation, and that's nice, and we learn a lot, and we vote, and we're accountable to the people, but none of us are architects on the city council. And so I just wonder about that sometimes. And the same for the planning commissioner rotation, because then you could have 2 more spots of experts that could be contributing to the aesthetics of our community. So it's just something I wonder about sometimes, because I think the DRB board is up there as far as importance for who we are as a city. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor DeBoscus.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jeff, you and I had a conversation about the opportunity for DRB to come before council and hear more about what we're thinking, what we're hoping, what we're expecting. So I hope my colleagues will take that opportunity to share with you so that you can share with the rest of DRB, because he genuinely wants to know what we want, which is wonderful. Thank you for that. My experience on DRB was very enlightening, because I think that what we see when we drive around Scottsdale, we sort of think happens in a vacuum. As residents, we sort of think happens as a vacuum, but it really starts and is a big part of DRB. And so your opportunity to look at a project and say, is this right for Scottsdale first? Is this right for this section of Scottsdale second? And then third, is this the very best that we can get for this for this section of Scottsdale? I think that's what we would ask, is to really always have that laser focus on, is this the best? And if it's not, be willing to say no. Be willing to say, this isn't okay. And we do have the design guidelines that say it has to fit in the area. And so I think that we had a really great experience with BB Living, where they came back and they said, you're right, that this was something that we've done everywhere else. You're right, it doesn't look right in this area, and we are happy to invest more. They happen to be headquartered in Scottsdale, so they were a little bit caught off guard that they didn't do their very best for Scottsdale. And so they put pavers in, and they really spent a lot to upgrade it for us. And so I think that's what I would ask. I think that you do that as much as possible, and you lend your expertise and really take it personally and take it to heart. And so I think the opportunity is also a challenge to be this guard dog and the watchdog for Scottsdale of how do we make it as beautiful as possible? How do we make it as high quality as possible? I think that can be really challenging at times. And I've seen you work, and you feel the burden of it. And you feel like you carry the burden of it a lot of times, I notice. And so is there a way to, I know you get up there and you prepare for the meetings and you think about it in advance. What is the best way for us to maybe communicate a little bit more in advance? I know we can't break open meeting law, but how can we kind of talk through projects maybe a little bit more to push just a little bit better? What do you guys recommend?
I mean, I'll respond just in general to your first comment about making the best. As an architect who's in charge of the design of an entire studio, like that's my role in my firm of 50 people, is to oversee the design quality of the firm. I have a lot of design opinions personally, things that I think are great and the best. There are other people that disagree with that. And so the threshold that we really have to toe is understanding what's really subjective and highly opinionated from an architectural standpoint versus what's maybe universal or what the city of Scottsdale views as quality. So I think alignment, this forum of open discussion and establishing alignment between council and DRB is really important. What we have to rely on and what we use as reliance is the guidelines. So guidelines for multifamily and for residential, guidelines for certain character areas. This is what we fall back on. And so, I mean, Brad may back me up on this from a procedural standpoint. You could probably talk a lot more about that but from a how we operate on the board, that's what we look at. It's not I have to really personally sort of check myself aside and say, oh, I shouldn't be personally saying, I don't think this is good. I also have to make sure I'm in alignment with guidelines of the city, and it's not just my personal opinion. But honestly, sometimes my personal opinion comes out.
Maybe
a
it
lot.
should.
So I think but as far as us understanding the role, we want to make sure that, and if our guidelines aren't in the right position, then we need to adjust the guidelines.
Yeah, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, I think Jeff is right on saying that there are times when personal opinion can get in there. And I think that as staff, we look to ensure that the design guidelines are always being met because that kind of distills down to the basics of what we want to have here in Scottsdale. The basic idea of this is the baseline of where we're at, and then it adds on a little bit more about, you know, here's some things that are really distinguish Scottsdale from other communities, and those guidelines are the collective thoughts of the entire community. They've been vetted through processes to identify and establish those guidelines with what the community's goals for design here are in Scottsdale. So it's always a pleasure to have Jeff and his colleagues on the DRB give their personal preference, give that extra, I guess, icing on the cake when it comes to discussing projects. But as staff, we're really relying upon those guidelines to provide the basis for how we review and analyze a project and making sure that it meets the quality standards of Scottsdale.
I would also add that I think that what Councilmember Graham was talking about is having multiple opinions is always a good forum for balanced design discussions. So singular opinions, I think my opinion's great all the time, 100% of the time. So, but that's not necessarily a balanced way of conducting a design review. So having the more voices and the more opinions that you can have, and specifically the more opinions who have a history of what successful and great projects are within the city of Scottsdale. And my history, a lot of what the work that I've done has been within the city, so I've sat in front of a lot of city council hearings and a lot of DRB process and just seen what the community values and what the type of projects that they put on posters and that they go patronize. So, but I think that having as many voices as possible to contribute to that discussion is incredibly important.
Yeah, and I'll just add a little bit to that. That voice is what makes the DRB what it is, right? It's a public board, and it gives the community the ability to come in and voice that opinion. And there has been a little bit of attempts at the state level to remove that voice, and hopefully we can work through that a little bit. But I think that's what really distinguishes the board and gives the ability for the public to come out and give their opinion and work through the people that you've appointed, like Jeff and others, to help make that opinion continue to move forward and create a great community for Scottsdale.
Do you perceive the design guidelines to have room for improvement?
I think, Jeff mentioned that. I agree with that. I think there are some improvements.
Do you feel like the design guidelines have room for improvement?
Oh, I think that they do. I think that this forum actually, I'm not sure how continued communication, but understanding what council's expectation for, specifically with multifamily, because it seems like it's the most contemplated use type that we have out there. What what everyone's view of success is and what everyone's view of quality. That, like I've said, that is a highly subjective thing in a lot of communities and a lot of opinions, but we'd love to have clarity about what everyone views as ideal developments and make sure that the guidelines, and we can recheck the guidelines. I think there's probably some room for improvement. I think certainly guidelines always need to be remet as construction typologies, and how we build buildings is evolving over time. There's new energy codes, like the previous commission was talking about. There's new building codes, guidelines, everything that we're doing, technologies of materials are all changing. I'll say one thing in particular, there's a lot of talk about deep recessed shaded openings on facades that kind of harkens back to a building style before quality glazing was developed, and now we have really efficient, high efficiency glazing. And there are some things that are maybe a little bit outdated, but they go back to the archetype of what's expected from Southwestern architecture. So there's a lot to talk about with those guidelines, but I think that we haven't probably, I would welcome more conversation to updating some of those guidelines through as part of the DRB, and possibly in combination with maybe the Planning Commission as well, and get as many voices in the process as possible.
And you're on Park?
Yes.
Well, it's going to be beautiful.
So.
We have high expectations, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Whitehead.
Thanks. Great presentation. I actually want to speak in agreement with what Councilman Graham mentioned. When we serve on the DRB, Jeff, your voice is really needed by all the other members. I wonder if there's a way to, whether or not council person is on or off, but to maybe tighten the requirements to serve on the DRB, if that's something this council wants to do, because landscape architects, but it's pretty broad. And again, having served, as we all have on the DRB, I think what we really need are members that know the development standards, the approved development standards, and have experience developing. So I think that's something that I would like to see tightened up. And again, I mean, it's really good for council to, I think we all enjoy when we do serve on the DRB, and I'm fine with keeping that, but maybe just strengthening so that we get, as Councilman Graham said, more Jeffs.
Councilman Littlefield.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you, Jeff, very much for all you do on that board. I've watched you for several years, and you do a fantastic job. I think the DRB board is a unique board to Scottsdale. I don't think most cities have a board that looks at the color, the design, the texture, the feel, how it fits in the neighborhood like the DRB does. And I think it really makes a difference overall over all of Scottsdale when you have a board that looks like that and causes changes to be made so that the pieces of our city fit together better. I don't know how else to say it. I always feel a little bit weird when I serve on the DR board because I failed art in 8th grade. My teacher said, "What are you doing here? You're wasting your time." No. And, oh yeah. So my dog always followed me to school on that day at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I always had to take her home during art. Music was a different story, but art was not my best thing. I have learned so much from serving on the DR board, and sometimes just coming down, sitting and watching it, because I learned the things that matter and the things that are under consideration. It helps me up here, and I feel like you serve the city by making our city more of a unified whole with different aspects of it that blend. And I think that makes a big difference between us and other cities that don't have that kind of input from different segments of the cities as they get put together. So I'd like to thank you for that very much. I think all of the boards and commissions that we have, including the DR board, are volunteers. They spend their time, their talents, their expertise, their education, and their viewpoints for free to the city for our use as we will. And I think that's really an amazing part of our boards and commission structure, and I think it's an amazing part of the DR. So I want to thank you and all of the DR members for the time that they spend on helping to keep our city beautiful and unique. Thank you.
I think I'll close by asking a few questions. You talked about the multifamily guidelines, design guidelines. How many multifamily projects are you seeing come before you lately? It seems like they've really decreased.
They have. I'm not sure of the exact count. I don't know that off the top of my head. I can tell you that just as someone who does this type of work in the industry, that there is a pause right now in a lot of those projects due to capital markets and construction funding. It's making it a little bit difficult. But what I was going to say and add, again, on some of the viewpoints is getting members on the DRB that not only understand or have an opinion on design, but also understand cost impacts and understand construction typologies and understand what you're saying and what your opinion means to the person who's proposing to build this, and making sure that your suggestions and how you're understanding is that you're understanding how they're actually going to be doing this project, so that your feedback is real and it respects it, and it's born out of a respect for their investment in the building and their investment in the city if you understand what they're doing. So I think adding those opinions would be great. But as far as the multifamily number, I don't have a specific number, but we have seen, I believe Cosanti Commons recently came through, and BB Living, and Palm Lane will be coming through. That was just before council, and I believe that the park project has a combination. It has both rental and condo in it. So, but yeah, I can't give you a number. But
no, I wasn't asking for a number. It would surprise me if we're seeing a lot of new projects come through. I mean, I know they're not coming through here, so they're not asking for zoning increases. So I think we're going to see a real slowdown as a result, the lagging effect of that. But interesting question, and my answer is I have no idea what the multifamily guidelines should be exactly, except for the highest quality possible. But what does that look like, right? To me, it looks like this. To Councilwoman Whitehead, it may look like that, and to you, it probably looks entirely different. So I have a little challenge, not your expertise, in I would say, as I was campaigning, I will know it when I see it, high quality, right? And how helpful is that to anybody, right? Not at all. But I think that's why we rely on professionals, and the lay of the land on the DRB is such that it's a composition of people who do know what it is before they see it, and they're involved in the process. And that's super helpful. A couple of things that I think are important is a philosophy that includes, and you just alluded to this, you beat me to the punch, pressing the envelope for the highest quality possible, which includes compatibility and appearance and fit within the community, aging well, right? That it's a project that's going to look really good still. It's going to age well, without putting imposing such restrictions and criteria that makes it very, very difficult or maybe impossible for the applicant to do the project. So you alluded to that, and I completely agree. The balancing test of the imposition of the requirements on the applicant and their ability to actually do the project. So I think we're really in a good place right now, at least for the time being. We have applicants that are coming through that really do want to do great work, and I think that's the result of the market conditions right now, the top apply. So that's great news. One thing I did think of is, people, for example, yourself as the vice chair, that you're encouraging other members of your community, design, whatever the case might be, community, to consider running for the DRB, and then also supporting those people through communication to us. I think that would be very, very helpful. And on the same token, if someone, isn't a good fit, I know that's probably a hard position for you to be in, but that's also important to know, even though albeit uncomfortable, I don't know, just thinking out loud. And in terms of enhancing the DRB guidelines or changing them, enhancing them ideally, we also, at least I would, rely on commission members such as yourself to come to us with those suggestions. I think that's a wonderful use of this board's time and energy. So those are a couple of thoughts from me, and I applaud you for your great work and the strong dialogue here, and keep up the good job. Thank you. Do you have anything else, Brad?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Mayor, our last presentation tonight is from the Neighborhood Advisory Commission, and its chair, Larry Hewitt, and staff representative, Taylor Reynolds.
Welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of council. I'm Taylor Reynolds. I'm a principal planner within our long-range planning, and I'm also the liaison to the Neighborhood Advisory Commission. I'll do a couple of the introductory slides and then hand it over to our chair, who's Larry Hewitt. He's in his second term with the commission and also second term as our chair. Next slide, please. The Neighborhood Advisory Commission is a commission that consists of 7 members appointed by City Council that have a 3-year term. The commission advises and makes recommendations to City Council on policies, plans, and strategies for the preservation, improvement, and revitalization of Scottsdale neighborhoods. Second, and most importantly, is that they establish criteria for determining the Neighborhood Enhancement Grant Program and how those funds are allocated throughout the year. And Larry will get to that on a couple of the next slides. So with that, next slide.
All right. In 2024, the Commission focused on strengthening neighborhood pride and supporting community-led revitalization projects. The Neighborhood Enhancement Grant Program, or NEGP, is made possible through funding generously allocated each year by the City Council, with a $30,000 budget annually to support small-scale neighborhood improvement projects. These grants are particularly impactful for neighborhoods without the resources of a homeowners association, providing assistance for projects like perimeter wall repainting, landscaping, and signage that help enhance neighborhood identity and visual character. The Commission deeply values the Council's continued support of this program. Neighborhoods that receive funding are not only grateful, they are empowered to address local needs proactively. In administrating these grants, the Commission is proud to help deliver results that benefit both individual neighborhoods and the broader Scottsdale community. In 2024, these funds supported beautification efforts that help preserve Scottsdale's character, particularly in non-HOA neighborhoods such as Bent Tree near 104th Street and Shea Boulevard, and Scottsdale Vista North near 90th Street and Thunderbird Road. These targeted investments empower neighborhoods to proactively address localized concerns before they escalate into broader community challenges. In the case of Bent Tree, support for the grant program was instrumental in resolving 16 active code enforcement notices of violation. In addition, the Commission reviewed and updated the grant criteria to improve clarity and consistency. These updates made the program easier for applicants to navigate and help ensure efficient evaluation of proposals. Finally, the Commission remained active in community outreach and engagement, participating in neighborhood events such as GAIN, promoting local recognition through the Spirit of Scottsdale Awards, and offering input on city-initiated text amendments related to the recent change in state law. These discussions help keep the Commission informed and better positioned to share relevant information with neighborhoods and residents throughout Scottsdale. Next slide, please. Looking ahead, the Commission is focused on 3 key areas. First, we we see an opportunity to broaden participation in the Neighborhood Enhancement Grant Program. We plan to continue to work with code enforcement, the Office of Citizen Services, with programs like Neighborhood Watch to help more neighborhoods become aware of and access NEGP funding. With that said, while the Commission recently updated the NEGPT criteria to improve clarity and accessibility for applicants, an ongoing challenge lies in the limited scope of where grant funds can be used. State statutes and the city charter prohibit the granting of public funds to individuals, associations, or corporations. As a result, NEGP projects must be implemented on city-owned land or within the city's right-of-way and benefit neighborhoods without a formal HOA structure. These limitations require careful consideration and continued transparency as the Commission works to ensure the program remains impactful and legally compliant. Second, we will continue to grow visibility for the Spirit of Scottsdale Award program, encouraging community nominations and celebrating those who embody neighborhood stewardship. In 2025, the Commission will continue working with the City Office of Communications in increase awareness and encourage broader public participation in the nomination process. By celebrating those who contribute to the neighborhood, vitality, and identity, we help foster a culture of community, pride, and civic engagement throughout Scottsdale. And third, we're focused on enhancing the Commission's role in addressing broader neighborhood issues. By refining our work program and staying engaged in relevant legislative and policy discussions, we aim to ensure our efforts remain responsive to Scottsdale's evolving needs. Moving forward, the Commission will continue to invite presentations that deepen our understanding of neighborhood-related topics. The knowledge allows us to be more effectively share information with residents and ensure the Commission's input reflects the needs and interests of the City of Scottsdale neighborhoods. Next slide. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Open to any questions like the other Commission chairs and vice chairs.
Thank you, Mr. Hewitt. We really appreciate you coming and for that healthy report. Appreciate it. Councilwoman McKellen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds and Mr. Hewitt. Thank you for being the liaison to the board, playing double duty with your job, plus doing that. And Larry, for all your time on the commission. This is one of my favorite commissions because it really is the heart of Scottsdale. I know your awards are called the Spirit of Scottsdale, but going into the neighborhoods, working with the citizens, and helping to advocate for the residents what they might not know and how to get funding for something as simple as a broken window for an elderly woman, or having the connections of the city, so someone doesn't keep getting cited, that you're working with code enforcement and you're working with the police department and you're working to help the citizens be a good neighbor. They don't want to have a bad or a dilapidated home, but you figure out ways to help them. And it really just tugs, I think at the heartstrings of what being neighborly is about. Along with that, encouraging these neighborhoods that aren't part of homeowners associations, that are kind of the older parts of Scottsdale. And I love that the grants you gave this year were in the north part of Scottsdale, and that there was a need in some areas, some outlying areas. So I just appreciate all that you do, and if there's anything I can ever do to be of help, I love attending your commission. Also, there's always something I learn, but thank you for the work you do.
Councilwoman Whitehead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yes, and of course I agree with Councilwoman McGowan. So we talked a lot about return on investment tonight on different, this is a great example of return on investment. Bent Tree had to work darn hard and spend a lot of money to get into compliance in order to get that grant, but there's other benefits. It brought the neighborhood together because when you don't have an HOA, you don't necessarily have to communicate with all your neighborhoods. So that was, I happened to be involved in that one, and it was a long process, but it was so beneficial. And they all pulled together, and they did a lot of work in order to get the grant. And then I liked how the commission was flexible because it was a 2-year process to get both sides of the wall, both street sides painted. So that was just great, and there's just a lot of good examples. But again, this grants like this one require everybody give something, and then at the end of the day, everybody knows more people in their neighborhood. So it's really good. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Councilman Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hewitt, when you were speaking, I felt like I was back in Boston.
I was just there last week, so.
Oh, were you really?
Yes.
Maybe you sharpen your pencil a little bit. I had flashbacks. Taylor, thank you for presenting. Mr. Hewitt for serving. One of my feedback, I spent a lot of time thinking about short-term rentals, and I just constantly think that your commission is the commission to do it. What's it? I don't know. But we don't really have a dedicated, I think creating a commission for short-term rentals is probably excessive. I think that maybe this isn't the way it goes, but I just think that I'm sure you're maxed out. Maybe you feel maxed out, maybe you don't.
Well,
Go ahead.
That's often one of our topics that we ask city staff for information on a lot is the STRs. And unfortunately, as all of you know, we're so limited based on state legislation as to what we can do, but we're always asking.
That's what some say. But yet we were able to, they passed legislation. It could be a tool to promote legislative ideas. It could be, there are other ways I think that there's untapped ways creatively, looking at all sorts of enforcements about, everything that goes on with a hotel that short-term rentals just are exempt from running a hotel in a neighborhood. Pool fences. Taylor, you kind of look like you want to say something. So
yeah, thank you, Mayor Borowski, Councilmember Graham. I know, I believe 4 years ago, there was a short-term rental working group that provided information in the city, worked with City Council and had recommendations that most of which I believe was implemented by City Council at that time. But I think from, a land use perspective, short-term rentals is more of a land use, more land use related in that it might more closely align with the Planning Commission and working with their commission on any sort of future, I don't want to say recommendations, but let's say there was changes that the ordinance that would go before Planning Commission. Neighborhood Advisory Commission would be, I believe, happy to review any of those efforts that go forward and provide input as we do on any text amendments that come before City Council. But again, I think that's more of a land use issue and perhaps not so much of something that would be pushed by the Neighborhood Advisory Commission.
I expected you to say that. I expected that. And that's what makes it so fun to challenge yourselves. The planning, the land use aspect, basically the legislature is going to pass something maybe, give us relief. Then they'll do something and they'll pass something. It'll be one and done. But there's just so many ways to look at, because short-term rentals are just ravaging neighborhoods. And a lot of your mission is about, it's neighborhood focused. I mean, just last May, we had almost 100 short-term rental related nuisance party calls. Is there something that you guys could have done if you put your heads together, maybe to get that number down? It's not to say today. It's just something to think about. Maybe think about it. If there's anything you could do as far as the way we think about this is a neighborhood and we've got a mini hotel operating inside of our neighborhoods. Is there a role that you could play? So that's my only thought. I like pretty much everything else you do, and I appreciate your service. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, City Attorney.
Mayor and members of the council, I have to disagree with the planner. Short-term vacation rentals is a regulatory issue. We issue regulatory licenses, and we govern their behavior. It's not so much a land use. We're pretty much required to allow them in any residential area. And we have an extensive short-term vacation rental ordinance. If you were to offer up a commission that explores the idea. I tend to agree with Councilman Graham. I don't think the Planning Commission is appropriate because none of our short-term vacation rental ordinances are in the planning ordinance, and those also are much more difficult to initiate because they require a text amendment. And just a friendly reminder that the city manager asked me to mention, we do have an entire police squad and set of code inspectors that are also working on this issue.
Mayor,
Thank you. Councilman Graham.
Mayor, if I just may say one concluding remark to that. I didn't expect the acting city attorney to step in, but I appreciate that. I do think there is a land use aspect of it, just my opinion, but it is a behavior thing. And these ordinances, we talk about we have a police enforcement unit. What are they enforcing? They're enforcing ordinance that the city council is passing. Where do those ideas come from? Like, how do we, I think that the people on the Neighborhood Advisory Commission are pretty competent, and maybe they could brainstorm, and maybe that's the place, because you guys are in the trenches as far as, looking at honing in on maybe some of the rough patches of the neighborhoods that people are dealing with. We pass ordinances. The ideas come from somewhere. Why not you? I mean, we're open, listen to everybody, but it's just kind of an idea I've thought. And if you think it has merit, maybe we can talk about it. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor DeBascus, and then Councilwoman Whitehead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your service. I actually had a note to ask you about short-term rentals as well. I feel like this might be a good place. And maybe a way into it would be to analyze the results of the short-term working group. How is it going? Are we getting the results we expected in certain areas? Are we finding something else is going on? Do we need to address it in another way? Bringing the police team into it and sort of having those conversations. It's always good to check in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did the ordinances do what we thought they were doing since that working group broke up? Maybe you guys could take a look at it. I think that would be really helpful. And I think we feel like you guys have the pulse on these neighborhoods more so than any other group. The other thing that I was going to mention, I was a little bit surprised Councilwoman McCallum didn't, and it's her idea, so maybe she didn't for a reason, was some neighborhood meetings. Have you already talked about that with them? And so she mentioned an idea of having get-togethers in neighborhood groups so that folks could understand their city services. They could meet the police, they could meet the fire, they could meet all that. And I think that would be a great place for that idea.
Yeah, Vice Mayor DeBacchus, Mayor and Council, we actually do attend GAIN events, which are the neighborhood events that happen once a year. The neighborhoods can request someone from the neighborhood advisory council attend their meeting, and so of the 7 of us, we try to split it up and cover as many as we can on those GAIN events. And then with bringing in the Neighborhood Watch, partnering up with them for the grants, we can also communicate the other things that we do for them to share with their neighbors.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Whitehead.
I'll be quick, Mayor. Just a thought, based on what my colleagues have said. We have the Trails kind of subcommittee. Maybe that's something we have SDR subcommittee to the neighborhood. That's just an idea I want to throw out there.
Excellent. Lots of good ideas. Thank you so much for being here tonight and for your presentation and answering questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
That concludes our business for this evening, and if so inclined, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.